Thank you very much. So I'm Wim. I'm co-founder of Xpenditure, and in fact, we are a leading platform for expense management. And today, I would like to show you the importance of working together with cloud-based companies as added value partners in order to diversify in a continuously changing banking landscape, especially here in Europe. But maybe first, some background on our company. We were founded in 2011. And initially, we started with with prepaid MasterCards, but quite quickly we evolved towards expense management because the feedback that we received from the CFOs we were talking to was that they were really struggling with piles of receipts and a lot of paperwork. So today we are funded by 8 million euro funding, mainly by serial tech entrepreneurs. And currently we have customers in more than 160 countries. And in fact, because we are solving a global problem, but with local needs, we have 6 offices around the globe. So the question today is not, is there a solution for expense management? But luckily, we have come to a point where companies and people ask themselves, which is the best solution for expense management? And in fact, we believe that a good solution is a tool that copes with those local needs. Because despite people traveling and spending around the globe, it still remains a local challenge. We believe that a one-size-fits-all may work well in US, but here in Europe, we encounter that local fragmentation. But the good thing is that behind every challenge, of course, lies an opportunity, especially here in Europe. As we take the humble credit card as an example, we know that corporate travel and credit cards, they go way back. In fact, they were the #1 payment method for business travel since decades. But the receipt always remains an issue. So it's logical that banks and companies like us, they work together in order to join forces to cope with that local fragmentation. Now, 2 years ago, we announced the launch of real-time expense management simply by eliminating the expense note. Because the problem with an expense note is there are receipts attached to that note. And in fact, if there is a receipt rejected, all the approved receipts are also stuck in the process. So by eliminating that note, we can guarantee a real-time flow. And in the meantime, companies like Deloitte, Kone, Henkel, Miele, Scania, they already save a lot of time and money thanks to Xpenditure. And today I would like to show you the importance of bank transactions as a part of that real-time process. But maybe a quickly recap of the product. So we are a cloud-based solution, and basically we simplify, digitize, and automate the complete flow from the moment you have receipt until your accounting package or your ERP. The most easy or common way to digitize the receipt is simply by taking a picture of the receipt, and Xpenditure will scan and automatically extract 4 data fields out of the receipt. So the merchant name, the date, the currency, and the amount. If required by the company, you can add extra information like the payment method, the category, a project, a trip, in fact, anything that is required. From that moment, you can easily submit your expenses for approval, and the job stops or finishes for the employee. If we then look at the approver role, he can easily accept or approve all the expenses with one single click, or in case of a violation against the company rule, which we will detect automatically, he can isolate and reject a single expense, but all the rest automatically goes through to your accounting or ERP package. Now, to fully close that loop, it is very important to get bank transactions in on a daily basis, rather than at the end of the month via a monthly statement. Because by default, the process is postponed for a month because of the fact that credit card companies, they bundle the transaction data and they only deliver it at the end of the month. So by pulling in the transaction data on a daily basis, we can do an automatic matching of the receipt data and the payment data almost real time. And in fact, that gives the cardholder the unique advantage of a waterproof reconciliation and also a correct currency conversion. And in fact, the time saving for all is considerable. Now, today, we already have a lot of partnerships going on with banks, with payment brands, for example, with MasterCard via US Bank in US, but also in Canada, in Brazil. In Belgium, we are working together with Belfius Bank, with ING across Europe. And in fact, this way it shows that working together with banks and with companies like ours, we can really make the difference. I'm pressing the wrong button here. All right. So a nice example here of that value-added partnership is the one we did with MasterCard Business Network, where we are part of a bundle linked with all the corporate MasterCards in order to do that matching. Now, another nice example of these kind of partnerships is concerning the recuperation of foreign VAT. Because in Europe, every year, 8.5 billion euro is not reclaimed by companies every year. Why? Because all the different countries, they have a specific set of rules and regulations linked to that. And in fact, it's just a very time-consuming and cumbersome process. Mainly if we talk about smaller business expenses. Now, the good news is that Xpenditure can easily deliver digital receipt data towards companies specialized in this matter. So how does it work? In Xpenditure, we have an overview of all the reported and approved expenses, and with one single click, we will sort them out per category and per country, and this file can be exported towards a file that can be used for reclaiming foreign VAT, or we just link it with a select list of partners who are specialized in this matter. So in fact, to conclude, by creating extra services on top of our core expense management, we are heading towards the next level of expense management. In fact, it will allow companies to fully outsource expense management, including controlling, auto reimbursements, and even rewarding of employees to spend less for the company. And this way, companies can really focus on their core business, and filing expenses will not be more than just taking a picture of the receipt. So we believe that the fragmentation in Europe really gives us the opportunity to work together and to build solutions that really meet the needs of European businesses. So thank you very much for your attention, and we will be here all day if you have further questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Wim, for the great presentation, and you were even better in the timekeeping. So we have time for questions. Is there any questions from the panel members or from the audience?
We looked into a solution for ourselves as well. The one is called Apokai. I don't know if you know it.
Never heard about it.
Okay. Because I wanted to ask you how you're different from them, then it's probably not a good question. Then the other question I have is your revenue model. Do you charge per user? How does it actually work?
Because it's a SaaS solution, we have a subscription fee, a monthly or yearly subscription fee. So it's quite transparent also for companies.
So it also works for smaller companies as well?
In fact, we don't want to make a difference in between customer segments. So we have independents, we have SMBs, we have big corporates using the solution because it's really a mass market. Everybody is struggling with receipts, whether you are an individual or a big corporate. The problem is everywhere is the same, but we see that it's often linked with local needs. So for example, in Germany, you have a lot of daily allowances. In Mexico, you already have XML files, e-receipts, different regulations on fiscal acceptance of digital receipts, etc.
One quick one. How do you handle the security issues and data protection? Anything around that?
That's a good question, and that's also a big differentiator compared with other solutions, mainly from the US. Here in Europe, we are quite strict on that. But one of our shareholders, he owns the biggest data center in Benelux. It's Jonas Danes from Combel, Sentia Intelligent Group. And in fact, we have the Rolls-Royce of hosting. We have a private cloud there. He has all the ISO certifications necessary for when it comes down to safely and secure storage of data. And in fact, it's also mentioned in our terms and conditions that we are really protective on that. So we will never use it for marketing purposes. We will never resell it. That's really a big difference. It's not that it's somewhere on an Amazon server on the US. Also, again, for example, in Germany, it's not even allowed to work with companies if the data is not stored on European soil, for example. So,
Good.
So that's good news, but then you're not going to be able to build anything else using those data, right?
No, we are not using that data for other purposes. In fact, we are just storing them. We keep them for 10 years. And in case of a fiscal control, you can just easily look up all the expenses listed in the system per date or per user or per category or whatever.
I guess your system also works for electronic receipts.
Yeah, so that's a good question. Also, again, depending on the country, one country is already further evolved than others. And we are working on a European project around the standardization of e-receipts. So e-receipts, you don't need to print it out and take a picture, of course. You just email it, and it will follow the same flow. We will read out the e-receipt, and we will hang it in your account. And also, it depends on the country again, if it is fiscally accepted to store it digital or not. To give you an idea, in Belgium, we still need to keep the physical receipt for 7 years. It's crazy. I mean, we've been lobbying 18 months with the government, and now we got a fiscal ruling that if you digitize it within Xpenditure, that you can throw away the original receipt. And to be honest, on the thermic paper, the ink is not readable anymore after 1 or 2 years. So
I truly believe it. Thank you very much. One more question.
So you also mentioned the different partnerships with banks. So in Belgium, you mentioned ING and Belfius. What about the other banks? Because if you have an SME that's banking with another bank, is that an impediment for?
Good question again. Also, it depends again on those local needs. To give you an idea, in US, the banking landscape is much more uniform, so it's quite easy to get banking transactions in. In Europe, we see a lot of protection around that banking data, and there are different possibilities to work together. So the most pragmatic way to serve clients is, in fact, if they receive a monthly statement, they just take a picture of that statement. We will read out all the lines, and we will match it with the receipts we can find. If we find a line without a receipt, we will trigger again a to-do. Banks who are already working with PDF statements, you don't need to print it. Again, same story, you just email it. The nice thing is that we can make the difference if we work together with banks to pull in the transaction lines real time. And either we do it directly with banks like we did with ING, or we use payment brands like MasterCard. They have a smart data engine, which is linked with ING. So via MasterCard Smart Data, we can pull in transaction data from MasterCard through ING. But you have other companies like we saw before with Figo. We work together with them. You have Direct ID. It's a British integrator. They can provide us access to 3,800 banks worldwide to pull in the transaction data real time. So, but the nice thing of working directly with banks is from a marketing perspective, you can really do nice things. You can bundle it with the credit cards, in fact, to diversify towards their competitors.
Yeah, you actually answered my question, and that was with the real-time data from MasterCard and Visa, which I find extremely interesting here, because it's a mess sending in receipts.
It's true.
Yeah.
That's what we want to solve.
So you seem to be doing good in solving a real mess and a real problem. And I think that's one of the things where you can create innovation, that is there a real problem to be solved. And are you solving a real problem, or are you inventing the problem that you intend to solve? So that's also sometimes the case. So thank you very much, Wim, and thanks again for your presentation.
Thank you.